Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about box plots and sort of find out what they are. You might also have heard them referred to as box and whisker plots, and you'll see once we create one why they're called that. They're just a visual representation of the 5-number summary, which we've talked about in a previous video. Here's some data, some scores that we're given, and you can see they're just all jumbled up. So the very first thing I want to do before I get my 5-number summary is sort them into order from lowest to up to highest, 12. Now I'm going to go through, and the first thing is I'm going to find my 5-number summary. And hopefully you can remember that that 5-number summary consists of the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the maximum. So I'm going to split my data in half. There are 13 scores, so I can see that my median is going to be this one in the middle. My minimum is 2, my maximum is 12, and Q1 is half of this bottom score. So the median one gets taken out here because it's a score on its own. So the Q1 is the median of the bottom half, is here. Q3 sits in here. So those values work out to be 2, 3.5, 5, 6.5, and 12. And if you've forgotten about that, check out the previous video about the 5-number summary. Step 2, I'm going to draw a scale, just a number line that covers all those values, all right, from 1 up to 13. So it easily covers my 2 up to my 12. I'm going to check for any outliers, and we've done a previous video on how you actually calculate an outlier. Once I've got my Q1 and my IQR, now remember my IQR is just the difference between Q3 and Q1. So in this case, 6.5 minus 3.5, it's an IQ of 3. Like I said, we've got a previous video. If you need to check on outliers, have a look at that. But when I do those calculations, I get a bottom of -1 and a top of 11. So any scores that are either below -1 or more than 11 would be an outlier. And if I have a look across my data, I can see there's nothing below -1, but there is a value here. 12 is more than that. So 12 is an outlier. So I'm going to come on my scale here, and I'm going to put a cross where the outlier is to represent that this number is an outlier. I'm then going to adjust my new maximum. I'm going to cross out the 12. My new maximum becomes the next number that is not an outlier. So 9 is not an outlier, so I'm going to use it for my box and whisker plot as my new maximum. Now I'm going to mark vertical lines at each of these 5-number summary values, but the maximum will be my new maximum here. So I can see I've got a minimum at 2, my Q1 is at 3.5, my median is at 5, my Q3 is at 6.5, and my new maximum is 9, and I've got my outlier marked there as 12. Nearly finished. I'm going to create the box using the Q1, median, and Q3. So that's these 3 lines here. My Q1, median, and Q3. I'm just simply going to make a box by adding top and bottoms to that. That's the box part of my box and whisker plot. The whiskers are drawn out from the box to the maximum and the minimum. So I'm just going to take lines and draw them out, and these bits represent my whiskers of my box and whisker plot, or my box plot. And that's it, you're done. You've drawn the box plot for this set of data that we started with. A couple of things I'm just going to point out on this box plot is each of these sections, from the minimum to Q1, this section, this section, this section, there's 4 sections between vertical lines, and they each represent approximately 25% of our scores. So the bottom 25% of scores would sit between the minimum and Q1. And that's the same for the other boxes. The next 25% would sit in here, the next 25% in here, and then there's approximately 25% between Q1 to our max. Now I say approximately because this score is sort of included in the 25%, but it's not included in our box plot because it's an outlier. So approximately 25%. In other words, we've broken it into quarters. So that is our box and whisker plot. Now we wouldn't normally write all this red stuff on it. When you do it, it's just going to look like that. We've got a box and whisker plot that shows our minimum, Q1, median, Q3, maximum, and any outliers. Good job, guys. Well done.